Welcome back, everybody. I'm your host, Richard Burns, and this is the Solomon Project. It's not how much you make, it's how much you keep that counts. Hopefully everybody's doing well. Doing some night driving tonight. Hope it's okay with you guys. Started out maybe about half an hour ago, so I missed all the fun. Last night was the presidential debate. I'm sure it was a whole lot of fun. Most people don't even watch it. They just get the clips later on. So that must have been a whole lot of fun. These debates don't really move the needle for either. Actually, it doesn't move the needle at all for either side. Where it does matter is for that very small group of voters that are undecided. Independents that are undecided, and new voters, young new voters. Other than that, each camp, whoever's in whatever camp they're in, they're not crossing over to the other side. I'll check it out later. See what happened there. For entertainment purposes, I get to see what happened. So I spoke about the advantages, what I believe to be the advantages of getting your CDLs through a school as opposed to through a company. So just to recap, the advantage of getting your CDL through a school is that once you get your license, you can pick and choose whatever company will accept you, assuming, of course, if you apply to more than one, you'll have choices. And if it doesn't work out in one, you can put in an application for another. Whereas if you do it through school, through one of the carriers, they're going to want you to commit a certain amount of time, and they're going to be taking money out of your paycheck because it's not free. I don't know if they advertise it being free, but it's not free. It'll come out through your paycheck or something, but it will come out. In the school, however, you got to come out the pocket. I'd rather have the flexibility of not having to commit to one. Well, I'm speaking from experience now, because unless you've worked for a company, you won't know what kind of things will make you want to leave that company or a trucking company in general. Because trucking is not easy. It's not easy. I can speak on what it was like driving local for 18 years, which is where I started. I started driving local. I can tell you that driving local was not what I thought it would be. My expectations were one thing, and reality was something else, something very different. I was under the impression that by working local, I'd be home every day which I was practically every day, but I had no quality time with my family. None. Zero. When I started working locally, I had a 1.5 hour commute toward the job and a 1.5 hour commute going home. So that's 3 hours of commuting. Plus, when I started, it wasn't a 14-hour day with a 10-hour break. It was a 16-hour day with an 8-hour break. And we used to recap. We didn't have all this reset stuff going on. So I had no quality time. None. I was exhausted most of the time. Fatigued most of the time. Which is a problem when you're driving a truck. You don't want to drive fatigued. And my argument against ELDs, because I'm not in favor of ELDs, electronic logging devices. I'm not in favor of them because you can have your 10-hour reset to start your next day, but just because you had your 10-hour reset on this electronic log, that doesn't mean that you rested. You could be on your 10 hours and not want to sleep at all for the first 7 hours. So what happens when you get sleepy after the 7 hours? You only have 3 hours remaining, and if you got a load and an appointment to deliver that load, well, you're gonna sleep those 3 hours and you're gonna want to keep sleeping, but now you got to wake up because you got to start your clock, and then you got to start driving, and then you're going to drive fatigued. Without the electronic log, let's say you don't sleep for those 7 hours, you wind up going to sleep for 3 hours, you wake up, you'll drive for a while, you will get fatigued, you will get tired, but you pull over, get some more sleep, and not have to worry about a clock ticking, losing hours of service, and then when you wake up again, you could just start driving again without even worrying about a clock running out on you. Because if you have to stick to the ELD, once you start your clock, once you start your 14-hour clock, it does not stop. Even if you go off duty, even if you go into sleeper berth, that 14-hour clock continues. After the 14 hours are done, then you can go into a reset. Now there's sleeper berth splits and all that other stuff, but again, it doesn't matter. You're gonna wind up driving fatigue, especially when you do refrigerated loads. You're gonna be driving fatigue. Many times with a refrigerated load, and you know, some truck drivers praise driving reefers because they get more money. Well, you also spend more money. You got to keep in mind that your trailer requires fuel, and we all know how expensive fuel can get. Also, you got another motor that you have to maintain, and your insurance costs are higher because now you got refrigerated goods, and if for some reason the motor on your refrigerated unit goes down, there's that possibility that that load may not be deliverable or accepted by the receiver, in which case they'll put a claim against the load, and that load could be hundreds of thousands of dollars. So something to consider. So I wasn't getting good rest as a local driver. I wasn't having quality time as a local driver. Split days off. I might have a Tuesday and a Friday off, or a Tuesday and a Saturday off. Split days. So when I do have a day off, I'm completely spent. I'm exhausted. Again, you're not having quality time with your family. So getting into the trucking business, or not the trucking industry as an employee. Well, you know what? Employee, or even if you have your own authority. Well, when you have your own authority, then you can manage your time a little better. You still got to work. You still got bills to pay. And if you think things get better because you got your own authority, it's not necessarily the case. You still have two bosses. You got the DOT, which is the Department of Transportation, and you've got the insurance companies. Now, you got your CDL. Some people want to rush into getting their own truck and maybe their own authority. I'm not in favor of that. I don't think that's a good idea. There's a learning curve with this job. And I don't think it's a good idea for you to learn by making mistakes with your own authority or with your own truck. I think the best thing to do is to drive for a company for about 5 years. Get connected with people with experience so that they can ask you questions that will perhaps prompt you to ask yourself questions as to why it is that the company is asking you to function a certain way, to operate a certain way, to work a certain way. Why is it that the safety department makes a big deal about certain things when it's not apparent to you? Whatever goes on with safety, or whatever safety asks of you, is not really for the for safety's sake. It's to protect the company. So safety is not really that's kind of crazy, I know, but that's the truth. Safety is not there to make you safer. Safety is there to make sure that you operate the equipment a certain way so that they minimize lawsuits. And avoid acquiring points that make it harder for them to get good loads. Because yes, having a bad driving record will impact the type of loads that you can get when you have your own authority, or that the company can get. And when it's the company, it's not just you that's missing out, it's everybody else that's taking a hit as well. Because now the company itself can't get decent loads because of the blemishes. And the more drivers are in your company, proportionally, you would have more blemishes on your record. Which makes it harder. You see, if you have a small operation and you start looking for loads, brokers and shippers go on the FMCSA website, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. FMCSA, well, the FMCSA has a website, and shippers and brokers can go in and type in your DOT number, and they can see what kind of equipment you have, your safety record, whether or not you've had any crashes, any driving violations. They can see all that. And for example, if a broker were to post a load, any carrier that calls the broker for that load, well, the broker will more than likely go through that website that the FMCSA provides, and they'll check out your equipment, check out whether or not you have any blemishes on your driving or on your drivers, if you have any drivers, and they'll make a determination, because they're going to make more than one carrier is going to call for that load. And what the broker's going to do is they're going to decide to go with the one that they feel is the most reliable. Same thing with the shipper. The shipper's going to decide who's the most reliable, who's got the equipment. Somebody, okay, let's say their driving history is both clean, no blemishes on either one of the carriers that are calling in for a load, but one has a 10-year-old truck, the other one has a 2-year-old truck. The shipper or the broker are more than likely going to want to give that load to the 2-year-old truck, because the probability of that 2-year-old truck breaking down is lower. Notice, I didn't say that it won't. I'm talking in probabilities. The probabilities that truck will not break down, the 2-year-old truck will not break down, is much higher than the 10-year-old truck. So the likelihood is that they would more than likely give that load to the carrier that has a 2-year-old truck as opposed to a 10-year-old truck. That doesn't mean that's accurate, but they're just looking at it from a probability standpoint. Nobody can predict the future. The driver can't predict the future. The shipper, the broker, nobody can predict the future. So, I mean, I had just replaced an air pump and thing blew out on me, brand new. So it's not a guarantee, but you work with probabilities. Anytime you work with business, you're working with probabilities. You're rarely ever, if ever, are you working with something that is 100%. It's not the case. I'm gonna leave it right there. I'm gonna give you guys up to Kitty because we can continue this discussion further on. So, love, peace, and hair grease. Stay fresh. Keep it profitable. Hey, Kitty, give these guys a ride.
Arabam Dacia, seviyorum çift kalem maça. Göremedi kimseden fayda. İşler